Today, I really want us to start off with some reflections. So, you probably have heard the phrase, there's no I in team, right? However, if you look closely at the word team, TEAM, you will see that there is me in team. That means definitely that people can get away with just being self focused and not working collaboratively. And in many organizations, what you'll find, especially in the large ones, you'll find that there are silos and strong behind the scenes alliances that get formed. And these alliances often shape how things get done. While there's this team dynamics that is going on, and is seen as political or self serving, how about if we try to reimagine things and create purposeful partnerships and drive collaboration and collective success? That is what today's podcast will be focused on. Welcome back to Quietly Confident Introvert Podcast. This is a space where we empower introverted women in business and leadership who are ambitious so that they can build quiet confidence and lead with purpose and presence, achieving those ambitions that they desire and creating impact. So, right now, I'm reading a book by Kit Ferrazzi, and that book is titled Leading Without Authority. And what it does is affirm this topic that we're going to be talking about today. It talks about the fact that leadership isn't about a title, it's about influence, it's about trust, and it's about co creation. And in today's episode, I am so excited because I'm joined by a very special guest who believes in all these things. And this guest embodies this approach so well. His role often seen as that of oversight, and sometimes he'll be seen as the organization's policeman, that corporate policeman. And yet, what he's been doing is redefining what it means to lead from within, building bold partnerships and creating impact without needing to be shouting about it, but really making a difference. Really, in an area where people expect you to be more contained and keep to yourself because you behave high and mighty. So, today's guest, I'm excited to introduce you to Thokozani TK Sihlangu, and he's the managing director of SH Advisory, a professional services firm in Dublin, Ireland, specializing in internal audit, risk advisory, compliance, and corporate governance. He also serves as deputy chairperson of the board of Institute of Internal Auditors South Africa. He chairs the Audit Risk and Finance Committee and holds multiple leadership roles across Ireland and South Africa, from Postbank to Standard Bank, from First Rand to Ernest and Young. His journey is a blueprint for courage, collaboration, and quiet impact. He's been also globally recognized as a Young Internal Auditor of the Year by Internal Audit South Africa and named one of the top 15 global emerging leaders by Global. That is why I'm excited that today he'll be part and parcel of the conversation we're going to have today. And the topic we want to talk about today is quiet confidence, bold impact, how leaders co create organizational success. So please grab your pen, your journal, and get ready to ask yourself the question: am I creating bold impact and quiet confidence in my role within the organization? Without further ado, I would just want to welcome TK to the Quietly Confident Introvert podcast. Welcome, TK.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patience. What an introduction. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Yes, and also I didn't mention that he's also a very lovely person and loves to have a good laugh. And we need that humanity today in our world. So, as we're going to be having this conversation, get ready to enjoy yourself, enjoy the conversation we're going to have. Like I said, journal and take tips, because how I met him was by reading the Internal Audit magazine. And then I saw this interesting story and I thought, wow, this is so impactful. But I want him to share, because he's done something that I thought, this impact, I really need more people to learn about it, especially as well from a Black man and someone who he looks young. Maybe he's older than he looks. You never know. But so tell us, please, how tell us your story of how you became the head of audit of a healthcare organization, even though I've introduced you a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Patience. I am still relatively young, so I think the looks are true in that regard. But firstly, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me in your platform, and well done on this platform that you're creating and really having these conversations that I think there's a lot for people to learn. I've watched a couple of episodes myself, and I was really inspired by the quality of conversations that you have. So I'm excited as well to be here, to be one of your guests, because I think really the topic that we're going to be talking about, it really shines a light on leadership traits, specifically of diverse individuals, and how we can be intentional, staying true to our values and using our unique strengths to drive meaningful change in all aspects of society. So I'm really looking forward to have this conversation, and I'm excited about the journey that I think I'll share today. So just to answer your question, I've spent, as you said, my entire career in internal audit and risk management, in compliance and governance. Those are all boring fields because we are often seen as internal to the organization. We're not external. We influence from behind. And my background started in mining, later moved into financial services, specifically banking, and which is really an industry that shaped how I think about systems, accountability, and creating value. And over the years, I was fortunate enough to hold senior leadership positions in some of the banks that you've mentioned. But in these organizations or in these roles, I was really passionate about moving internal audit away from being seen as a compliance tick box, as you said, or the police, as you said, but more towards becoming a strategic assurance partner. So I see myself as someone who could come into an organization, work with executives and directors of a company to make well and better informed decisions and balancing risk and reward, because often organizations are driven by revenue growth, scale, and often might overlook certain things around risk, around ethics, etc., and which is where we come in, making sure that the organization has a balanced focus as we look at growth. But on a personal level, I had a profound moment actually in 2012 that changed my career altogether. So I lost my elder brother in hospital.
Wow.
And it was an incredibly difficult time for me. And in my assessment, his passing was partly due to a couple of things. One, I think there was an element of negligence, there was poor systems of care. And later on in 2019, I then lost my mother under similar circumstances. So you could imagine that was really a tolling and the hardest moment of my life. I had to reflect on a couple of things, really, and my reason for existence. But I think these experiences really left me with a deep sense of conviction that I didn't want to just spend my career only improving systems in banking. So I wanted to contribute, hopefully, in the healthcare sector in a much more meaningful way. So I had the opportunity to relocate to Ireland, and I made the conscious decision then to say, if there's an opportunity for me to apply my skills in improving healthcare governance, I would absolutely take it. And as the saying goes, that be careful of what you wish for because it might come true. So that's how I ended up at the National Rehabilitation Hospital, leading their internal audit, corporate compliance, and governance roles. And I think these roles, it's about 3 roles combined into one, but this has given me really the opportunity to shape systems that ultimately impact patient care and dignity, and to ensure that patients and their families have confidence in the systems that support their care. And that the organization, obviously, in how it does its work is transparent, is accountable, and always strive for excellence. So those are some of the key things that I look at, although I'm not on the core facing of treating patients. Actually, maybe a funny thing to mention that my middle name, as we often have more than one name, so my middle name happens to be Doctor as well. And when
How interesting. It was meant to be.
The universe was aligning.
Yes.
And when I asked my mother a couple of years ago why she named me doctor, she said because she wanted me to be a medical doctor. So I hope I did not fail her because I'm still in a hospital, although not patient facing, but the work
Yes.
that we do has an indirect impact in how patients are cared for,
Mm,
and just the systems of care and all of that. So really for me, it's been a fulfilling experience. And in a
mm,
way, it feels like this has been an opportunity for me to honor my family's legacy by
mm.
helping other people so that they don't have to go through the experience that we went through.
Yes, and this is just fantastic. And there are a couple of things you said there. Why did I choose the head of audit to come speak? Because my background was also in internal audit as a chartered internal auditor. And also, then I moved on to financial services where I ended my career. So we have that in common. But what we also have in common is the need to make a difference, to have to find fulfillment and purpose in what we do. I always say to people that being an internal auditor is what really helped me in deciding to become an executive coach as well. Because looking at the systems, looking at processes, I could bring the lived experience, I could bring the knowledge into coaching executives who are looking to make a difference in the organization, layer by layer, stage by stage. And you mentioned the lived experience that led you here. Now, when all of us are looking for purpose in life, right? Are looking for purpose in life, if we can find opportunities where we can use those lived experience, it gives us full purpose and fulfillment. And I'm sure that, especially like you said, you're young, but the older you get, the more intense that desire for aligning lived experience and purpose together to find fulfillment in what you do is so important. And then when you said three roles in one, I was like, that's a lot of work. But what I like from what you said, and what these are leadership qualities, things like conviction. Your conviction is very important. And I think for most leaders, the way that you can share your vision and the way that you can embody your vision is when you have conviction and when you are working alongside feeling that you're finding fulfillment and purpose. But also, you take responsibility for things that some people might not expect you to take responsibility for. So, combining three roles and being able to do it. So, that really brings me to internal audit is, like we talked about, seen as corporate police, and sometimes people just want to exclude you. But how did you then position, and how have you always positioned internal audit as a strategic assurance partner, and maybe sharing with people who are looking at becoming leaders, doing a lot more? How can this leader step into this, into a role of strategic assurance partner with confidence and being able to influence decisions?
And that's such a very important question. So my belief is that if you have to step into this role with confidence, it starts with having clarity of purpose. You are
Mm,
speaking about conviction. Right? So when you have clarity of purpose, and that really requires, for a lot, it requires to fundamentally rethink also the purpose of internal audit. I've also shared a bit about how I've managed to transform or how I've viewed internal audit, because traditionally people fear internal auditors. You don't want, or even any auditor for that matter, you don't want them
yes.
near you, because they will come through and they will find a lot of problems. They will write long reports. So that's almost a barrier to then seeing internal audit for what it can do for you. So
Mm,
I've really believed that internal audit can do much more. I see internal audit as a strategic partner,
mm,
as someone or a function that can help the organization to deliver on its mission. And I often find that for leaders to step into a strategic assurance role, it requires one conviction, but it requires for us to deeply believe that we belong also at the strategy table. So if we are going to be providing and partnering with organizations on strategy matters, we need to believe that we've earned our seat at that particular table. And that requires a mind shift, which is absolutely critical. Because
mm,
when you see yourself as a compliance auditor, compliance monitor,
mm,
that's actually the energy that you bring to the table. And that's not
mm,
really a welcoming energy to the rest of the colleagues that are sitting across the table. So there's a couple of things that I often recommend, and I think these have proven to work for me. One is to get absolute clarity on the mission and the purpose of the organization.
mm,
So what problems does the organization exist to solve? What communities does it serve? In the healthcare, for example, it's about improving patients' lives. So when you ground yourself in that mission, the work becomes more meaningful. The second thing is about investing time in understanding the culture and the daily operations of the organization. So when I start any role, I spend the first maybe month or 2 months walking the floor, talking to staff at every department. That's what I do. I listen to the challenges that they face, and you'd be amazed. Just listening to people alone, you can write a report about where the organization, but it helps you to understand what are the key things that people are struggling with. Where are the areas where the organization needs to improve? How do you better what we do in the organization? So that knowledge is essential because it helps us to also provide insights that are grounded in reality and not just theory. And the third thing then is around about building relationships. So when you build relationships or with executives, with board of directors, because influence is earned over time and it's earned through trust. So people need to see you and build that rapport, build that trust with you. So that when you share also insights with them about what you share it in a constructive way, and that also builds that rapport. So most of the audits that I've done in my career have always not just been about highlighting risks, they've always been about sharing a story. So sharing a story to the organization on where we could be better. And if you are able to benchmark with other organizations, absolutely, that helps. But the last thing is about not underestimating our unique positioning. I'm referring to us as audit, but I think not just goes beyond audit. Not underestimating our unique positioning. So internal audit is one of the few functions in the organization that sees things end to end.
Yeah.
Then maybe another function that's there would be finance. But that holistic perspective of being able to see the organization overall is, I see it more as a gift. And when you use it wisely, it really helps to drive extraordinary improvements. And those improvements would be, for instance, connecting the dots for the organization. So that at the end of the day, we hold the mirror to the organization so that they can reflect on how they are performing and where are the blind spots and where are the areas where the organization could improve. Like I said, this is not just about internal audit, but anyone who finds themselves in a position of trust. It's about
Yes.
really being clear on your value, your worth, and what you're bringing to the table and using that to the benefit of the organization.
Wow, so many nuggets. I could write a whole chapter on this, but it's leadership training 101, basically. But what I like is the human to human approach that
Yep.
you're applying, that human to human approach about trust, about building rapport. And most times with audit, what I can remember is that part of our tools that we use is observation, yeah, being amongst people. But the way
Yes.
you've used it is another way of looking at it. Like, when I start a job, I'm not going to only be using observation as an audit tool, but I'm going to walk the floor and I'm going to do relationship building. And there is something about relationship building where John Maxwell talks about developing the leader within. And the second phase of developing the leader within is actually permission. So permission is what, when people give you permission to influence them, your work gets easier.
Yep.
But for them to give you that permission, for you to walk at that permission, you have to build trust, you have to build rapport. And you mentioned that. But it's the fact that you also say immersing oneself to gain clarity of the mission and the problem that the organization is trying to solve. Many times I know that there are people who want the reputation of being the people that found the problems. Yeah, the problems, and therefore wrote this nice red report and told people off. But flipping it on the other side, you're saying actually gain clarity about the problem the organization is trying to solve and gain clarity about the communities and the organization's customers. Then you can add value. Then you can go and sit on the table, and then you can be invited on the table and know the value that you bring. And so I like that there are so many things you said there, but one big one as well that also I think about it. That's exactly what inspires me, because when I go to do an audit, it's all about that end to end view that I get.
Yes.
I can do like this and put that umbrella view and help. And because I have been able to go through the end to end in a more intricate way than any executive or director or manager or leader will have, I can just take what is at that level, raise it to the highest viewpoint, and give it to them. And you said that's a gift. And that's a real gift. So the question, as people are listening, about how can I make a difference? How can I lead without authority? Because we're not talking just about titles here. We're talking about the human to human connection. I guess the main thing is, what value can you bring to the table in your role? So you might not be audit, you might not be finance, but what end-to-end information do you have? What insider knowledge do you have? What knowledge do you have about the blind spots? So that's brilliant. And again, we now look at the we come to the area of diversity, which is something that has suffered a big impact the last, at least in the last 18 months to 24 months, where it's many organizations are dumping it and so on and so forth. There is the need to have that diversity amongst teams. And you use the word we a lot instead of just I, which as audit, you should be saying I, but you're saying we, bringing the organization together. And I think when it comes to diversity, that's the way to look at it, right? So, how can leaders really, when working with diverse teams and limited resources, how can they have that mindset of co-creating success for the organization, really? And we're talking diverse teams can include diversity of personality, introverts and extroverts. It can include diversity in cultures, not just colors. So you can have white people, but they have different cultures. Europe has a different culture to, Asia and all that stuff. Then you can also have what people term as the ethnic minority or the global majority. So the richness of those things, how can organizations really achieve that co-creation success when they want to build diverse teams?
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of things just in
Mm,
that question, because it's about co-creation and then it's
mm,
a role about diversity. And then obviously within the space of having limited resources.
yes.
Reality is that no matter where you are, we will never have enough resources.
Mm.
Resources are always
Economics 101.
they're always
Needs are
limited.
unlimited, but resources are limited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So co-creation is really not just a nice idea, but it is a necessity for ability to come together and the leverage of one another, skills, etc. To me, I think it's something that you mentioned is about mindset. I see the organization as an ecosystem, or any organization or society as an ecosystem where every function depends on the other. So I often make the example to say, for instance, in finance,
Mm,
financial management is not just the CFO's role. It is
mm,
everyone's responsibility in the organization to make sure that you spend wisely, or you budget, and then you
mm.
spend wisely. And as you spend, you make sure that you create value, hence value for money. And then there's actually a funny clip that some people use to say, if your budget disappears faster than a good weather in Dublin, then you've got a problem. So I think that then cements the responsibility that internal financial control is everyone's responsibility. We all have
Mm,
a role to play in managing resources wisely. And similarly to risk management, it's a shared responsibility. Everyone in the organization has a role to play in firstly understanding risk that sits within your area of
mm,
influence. How might this risk affect the organization and how best to manage them? And the same obviously goes with us as internal auditors, because our role is to provide assurance that
mm,
things are done right, the laws and regulations are being adhered to, and the strategic plan is being implemented in the most legal, ethical, and prudent way. But it is each and every team's responsibility to define what success looks like and to
mm,
embed accountability into their processes. So when I work with teams, I always encourage them to often ask the question to say, how does what I do in the organization impact others? And I think that creates, therefore, a culture of shared accountability. But one of the most practical ways for me of how I've seen co-creation thriving is across cross-functional projects. When you bring people from diverse backgrounds, diverse skill sets,
mm,
I think, I mean, if you use an organization setup, if you bring someone from finance who've got a financial background, from operations, from HR, from client services to solve a problem, incredible innovation. So
mm.
diverse perspectives create better solutions.
Yeah.
But another important aspect, which I think it was covered in one of your episodes,
mm,
is also around psychological safety.
mm,
So people need to feel safe to share their concerns. To say, if you don't know something or you have an idea, a thought to share, you need to be in a conducive environment that allows you to have a view, and your view
mm,
must be valued, your view must be listened to.
mm.
So irrespective of your culture, of your gender, of your age, etc., so the ability to create that conducive environment where everyone feels equal to share, I think that's also very important, especially in organizations and in communities, etc. And there's a role for us as leaders to play
Yeah.
because we equally need to model vulnerability.
Mm,
When you as a leader are open to learning, or when you need help, you're open to asking for help, I think that also empowers others to do the same. And
mm.
over time, that unlocks, therefore, trust. It unlocks the collective energy of everyone stepping up and then being open to share. So vulnerability doesn't come natural to a lot of leaders, especially at that particular level. But I think
Yeah.
it's something that if we are deliberate and intentional on being inclusive, we then need to be vulnerable to share because we're not going to know everything, but to listen to also some of those voices, those silent voices, give them an opportunity so
Yeah.
that everyone feels that they have a role to play. And sometimes in leadership, you find that people would resonate more to people that say what they want, what aligns
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's about listening to the voices that differ with you. And that's about diversity, right? Because you also
Yeah.
have diversity of thought, diversity
Mm,
of perspectives, of experience. Yeah, all of those things culminate in people seeing things differently. And then
yeah.
we need to be welcoming and creating then the environment for those.
Exactly. And what the word there is leveraging, leveraging what you have. Sometimes what I find organizations doing is going outside to seek that are
Mm,
already inside. There is a saying, there's a saying in African context that I would say, then I will explain what it is. So they will say, what you are looking for in Sokoto is in your Shokoto. So basically, it's like using two words that are the same. They're spelt the same, but
mm,
what it is, what you're looking for is Sokoto. Sokoto is in the northern part of Nigeria. Yeah.
mm,
It's in your Shokoto. And Shokoto is a word that comes from the western part of Nigeria. But what it means is that what you're looking for and traveling all the way out there to Sokoto, which is
yes.
a state, is actually in your trousers,
Yeah.
which is the definition, which is the interpretation of what Shokoto means. So basically, a lot of times, what organizations do, I've seen it a lot, when they are looking for somebody to promote and everything,
Mm,
they think, oh, home is not good enough, and then they go out. And the reason
mm,
why they are doing that is because you haven't taken the time to look at the diversity. Now,
yes.
that is what people politicized what diversity means. But unfortunately, it's actually an economic leverage that you can use to gain financial advantage and so many advantages,
Mm,
performance advantages as an organization. Because if you look within what you're looking for and you find diversity of thought, diversity of culture, diversity of personalities, diversity of styles of working, and you
mm,
bring all this together, imagine how rich you create. The
mm,
problem with leveraging is you have to invest in the relationships, like you
yeah.
said. But also, the vulnerability element that you talked about is so important. And I like the fact that it's important to emphasize that vulnerability is modeling what you want others to do rather than seeing it as, oh, trying to overcome looking weak as a
Mm,
leader. It's modeling, what do I want people to actually accomplish here? I also like another element that you brought up here, which is risk management is everybody's responsibility. But then placing audit as actually the enabler of allowing you to take better risks.
mm,
It's so nice, isn't it? Because if you have further information, they say take informed risk. And
yeah.
that is what audit helps you to achieve.
Mm,
Because without risk, there is no reward, right?
yes.
So that's why people hate auditors. They see you coming and they think, don't come and police our risk taking. But what
Mm,
if looking at audit and saying audit is actually an enabler of informed risk taking?
mm,
And we can take more risk, we can feel more confident by our decisions because we have involved everybody, that
mm,
diversity of thought. We have allowed the voices to be heard, to feel safe, psychologically safe, to point out the errors and the things that are not right. So we know that we don't have blind spots. And so it's very useful what you said and how you have said it. But then there's something else about when people from diverse backgrounds now, or for example, introverts and so on, how can you help them in terms of your own experience to stop holding themselves back, to occupying leadership opportunities, taking space on the table? You mentioned finding space on the table, basically,
Yeah.
and people will disqualify themselves because they are quiet, they don't look like a leader, they don't have the skin color or whatever. So, how
Mm.
can people really step up and take up the spaces in those leadership cycles? And how can they build that? How can organizations actually recognize that they can leverage what they have really?
Yeah. And I'm so glad you're raising this because representation really matters. And many people often feel overlooked just to because of their voices. They feel that they're not loud enough and maybe they sound different, your accent is different.
Mm,
So some of those things could really impact one. But I think for me, whatever your background, it really starts by recognizing the value of your perspective. And you don't need to change who you are. You just need to own your strengths and let the work speak for itself. So there is profound power in difference. And I've seen again and again how unique perspectives can transform organizations, can transform society. So how I see things is that we absolutely need to reframe what makes us different to be an asset than a liability. Yeah. And because I'll share actually later about my story around that. But there's a couple of things that I think we need to also ask ourselves about. What can I contribute?
mm,
What do I see that others might miss? And I think when you focus on some of those things, naturally that you start to influence and drive meaningful change because you are not going to be competing for airtime, competing for space, right? It's about
mm,
just harnessing, understanding your worth, your role, and using that. So personally, I'm an introvert. And I used to think that at times I needed to be louder or to be the loudest in the room to be heard earlier on in my career. But over time, I realized that actually listening deeply,
mm,
observing the room, and then speaking with intention is more valuable because then when you speak, people listen. You're
mm.
not competing for airtime. You've taken your time to really analyze the situation. And when you share your insights after that critical analysis, I think, in my view, it makes a huge impact, right? So
Yeah.
we all have our strengths, but just focus on your strengths.
Mm,
And I think that really helps. But just the last thing here is around us recognizing that at times influence is not about having formal authority.
yeah.
Sometimes it's about the quiet confidence to show up, but show
Mm,
up consistently, to share ideas, to advocate for what is right. And that's how you earn trust, and that's how you're able to shape a strategy and to drive organizations and influence them over time. Because if you know that there's something that you feel strongly about, you
yes.
advocate for it and you use then the opportunities at your disposal to share your views, your insights in the way that makes you be authentic, in the way
Yes.
that makes you confident. Play to your own strength. Don't
Yeah.
compete with other people because that's not.
Mm,
They say an eagle is an eagle for a reason, and
yes.
an eagle will never compete with a lion or with fish because that's not
Yes.
its strength. Its strength
Yes.
is to fly. Strength is to
Yes.
fly above to see things. That's where I see that being authentic, being true to yourself, and playing to your own strength. I
Yeah.
think that would make you to feel that okay, what I'm doing is meaningful, and you'll start to see that also to yourself. So there's a sense of fulfillment that
Yes.
comes with that.
Yeah, and I like the an analogy that you use or the metaphor. The wilderness is the space for the lion. The lion is king. So, like Lion King that Disney says. But the eagle, on the other hand, the sky, in the sky, the eagle is king. The wingspan of his wings, its ability to see its prey from that point of view. And Disney uses it very well, where it has the lions. But then Zazu, who is not an eagle, but Zazu is the one that the lion will say, can you fly up and
Yeah,
take a look and do that strategy? Everybody had their strengths, and it was Zazu that was the nanny for the young lions because of his ability to spot the danger. That's his strength. So I like what you, and I always say to my clients that if you can understand your point of difference, and you mentioned it a lot, it's not about what others are strong at. What's your point of difference? And that is how you bring it. And actually, a lot of times, introverts actually underplay this listening ability. And why they underplay it is because, one, I love to listen, but also, can you train and develop your strength? It's just because it's a strength doesn't mean you know how to harness it, you know how to use it properly. If you intentionally decide, I want to be the best listener in this room, you're going to go and read, you're going to go and understand what does listening do. But also, when you now want to share, because listening is another skill that adds to communication, then you communicate better. So you're going to, as part of your listening, your development of your communication skills, you're going to learn listening or develop what is listening. And what I like about it is you talked about the fact that difference is an asset. That is, to me, profound. Who wants sameness? Who wants sameness? Sameness is boring. Let's just put it. Sameness is boring. And life, they say variety is the spice of life. So selfishly, when I was having my children, and initially I said, oh, I want a girl. So when a boy came, I said, please, can I have a girl? I need variety. I just need that variety. Not sorry for those who don't have the difference, but the difference, I can see the difference. I enjoy the difference. I enjoy that personality difference, but also the kind of gender difference. I just enjoyed that amongst my children. And when you were talking about some of the things that in the workplace, I remember what I want to say is that people employ people for their point of difference because intuitively they think we need this person. And then when they get the person, they try to fit them into a mold, into a groupthink situation. And they say, no, we don't like how different you are. Please adapt into our style. Whereas you actually thought to yourself when you were interviewing them, this is refreshing. And I had a story like that where I was my first job that I was getting into a firm where I was chosen, and the person said, we want you. I finished the interview, and the guy said, actually, we don't know. I don't know if we deserve you, but we need you because we need you, your way of thinking and everything. And I was surprised, even for myself, who belittled what I felt that I was bringing in the interview, saying what I brought made him see that it was needed. Now I get to the space, and my weaknesses were what was important. And then the weaknesses were more amplified because of the culture of the place. Now you said I brought strengths. Why didn't you focus on working on my strengths? Anyway, long and short of it, I didn't spend long there. I just realized that you might deserve me, but I deserve myself too. And I've just got to run away from here before I get contaminated or before I get damaged. But guess what? When I left, I got an email from my direct line manager, and what he said was so touching and an awareness because I had worked with an organization. They had sent me out to do some work with an audit for an organization. And whenever I do work, I'm like a dog with a bone. If I know that I'm right and I know that there's a risk there that needs to be handled, I'm like, no, I'm not letting go of everything. And he said that I just wanted you to know because you had a very tough time when you worked here. I just wanted you to know that we won the contract of so and so place, and we had to say that you were still with us. The reason the woman said, patience did not allow me to be exposed as a leader. She helped me to know where I was being exposed, where the risk lies, and did the job with her whole heart. And I think that is what I want. So since she's working with you people, I will give you back the contract and resign the contract. So he said, I just wanted you to know this, that we won the contract on the basis that we said you are still around, which technically was true. You were working out your living. And I just wanted you to know that you helped us win this contract based on who you are. And I wanted to say thank you. That was so touching. And that was important. So it helped me to maintain this point of difference. And my approach to things is so vital. It doesn't matter how everybody else is doing it. it had value and somebody saw the value in it. Of course, I suffered a lot. Let's just put it, teary nights, crying and things. But in the end, what a touching letter. It's just now we want to talk about looking at when navigating industries, cultural transitions, and leadership challenges, because you have actually had this movement from, even though there was a purposeful reason, and I think, like you said, people will be grateful for that movement. Your mom will be so proud because you indirectly became the doctor in the middle of your name, in a sense, by moving into the field. But it had to take maybe some pain
Yeah.
from your life. I always say that if you can turn your pain to purpose, or you can turn challenges to chances for change, such a big thing. So, are there any kind of, how do people personally stay grounded and confident when they're navigating? There's a lot of, I work with a lot of people who are navigating transitions right now. So when they are navigating new industries, cultures like you have done, or just general life transitions, what are some of the challenges that you have had to face and overcome, and how you overcame them?
Yeah. So for me, it's about curiosity. So
Mm,
curiosity has really been an anchor. So I've seen, or I see every transition in my career as an opportunity to learn and grow. And you're right, I've moved quite a lot because I've moved across industries from mining to financial services and banking. I've moved countries, moved continents. And I think I've moved also cultures, but I think
mm,
culture fascinates me. I like to explore cultures. I like to learn. So when I travel to every country, I try and speak the language of the
mm,
locals, to eat their food, just to immerse myself on that culture, because I think it's just, it goes back to what I said earlier. There's power in difference, right?
yes.
But it's all about curiosity. And I've also applied that in my own leadership style, like I said earlier, right? That it's about being intentional in the spaces that I find myself in, staying true to what I believe in, to my values,
Mm,
and using my unique strengths to drive change. So that doesn't come easily at times, because there's a lot that we go through,
mm,
auditors, because people do not appreciate or like what you say, and they'll try and victimize you, they'll try and influence you to change your views and all of
yes.
that. And I think that's where courage, conviction,
Mm,
that's where
mm,
ethics, integrity comes to the play.
mm,
Then you need to demonstrate all of those values in real life,
mm,
and you need to withstand all of the pressure that may be coming in, sometimes from people that can actually affect really your career,
yes.
right? But if you really believe in something, you are able to stand and withstand all of that wind that might be coming through. So that's, but I've made also myself a conscious effort to approach every experience with openness.
Yeah.
I've taken certain career decisions at times, and I always say that there's never a mistake. There's, you are where you are for a reason. So I won't go think back and say, "Oh, I regret that decision." No, there's a reason why I took that decision, because at the
Mm,
time, I would have made calculations of which decision to, should I take this. So for me to decide ultimately and say, "Yes, I'm going with this," then I need to believe, I need to stand for that decision. I can't come back and regret it.
mm.
So I've made certain those decisions. In hindsight, I'm like, okay, yeah, this decision was
How
always a
did I
mistake.
survive it?
How did I survive that? And in certain instances, okay, I had to step away because it starts to affect who you are. To what you are speaking about, I resonate 100% what
Mm,
you were just sharing on your story there. Because then I've had situations like that myself, where I saw that actually this is not the right environment for me. Although I was inspired and driven by the vision and the opportunities at the disposal of that particular organization, what it could achieve, the
mm,
change that it could bring, not just to people, but to the whole country, continent, and just changing people's lives. And there's a lot. And that's why I went to that particular organization. But when you are there, you're like, oh gosh,
no.
it's just too toxic. You make a
Yes.
contribution, but it's like dropping just a drop of blood in an ocean.
Mm,
It's not making that impact. And I think I took that decision to say, okay, maybe I could influence differently. Maybe
yes.
I don't need to be in the role that I'm in now. Maybe I can influence externally in different roles. But all of those things we don't regret. We take it as an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity
Yeah.
to grow. And I think for me, it's about also learning from the people that I come across. So, as I said earlier, that I'm young, so I mingle with the elder people because I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to also share. And there's a story for me to share as well, that there was an instance where I experienced unconscious bias.
Yes.
So you'd find that I would share things, but because of my age, some of those ideas
Mm,
would not really be received and they would be dismissed. But someone else who's older than me, could say the same thing, but it
mm,
would be accepted. So that was really frustrating. I used those experiences as a motivation, really, to say, okay, I need to keep showing up. I need to be consistent. And that helped me to build credibility through
mm,
results. So
mm.
it was a phase of my career, really, that I look back and I often laugh about. But you just need to overcome some of those challenges. So what keeps me grounded is really remembering, why do I do the work that I do?
Yeah.
Why am I in the spaces that I am in?
Mm,
And believing deeply in the power of my opinions, my views, my ideas,
mm.
and just being driven by a sense of changing things for the better
Yes.
for people at the end of the day. So that's what I think what grounds me,
Mm.
and then hopefully things that I think people can also take in their own lives, like you've shared also your story.
Yes. Yes. And a couple of C's there. Curiosity. Curiosity really is also a leadership quality that allows you to welcome different perspectives, like you said. And when you're transitioning, moving through cultures and everything, being curious allows you to know more. And people actually like people to be curious. People want to talk about themselves. They also want to be seen, be heard. And if you have that leadership quality of being curious about them, then you get to know and you get their support to be able to integrate. Not everywhere, like you said, there are some toxic environments. And I like what you said about belief and conviction and courage, because all those things are the tools that you need to be able to make decisions and go with your decisions without regret,
Yeah.
because we're always evolving. As you were
Mm.
thinking, as you were talking, what came to me was like, part of what feeds some plants and causes them to grow, aside from nice pellets and water and sunshine, is manure, and manure stinks, right? Manure stinks a lot. And
Mm.
sometimes some of our journeys are like that manure that stinks.
Yes.
But actually, it is organic and has so many nutrients. So it is designed, it is what actually accelerates that. They say people want to move more away from pain than they want to move towards pleasure. So sometimes the pain that you experience, the manure, the smelling manure, is what actually organically
Yes.
brings out the real person that you are. So
Yes.
really, there's a lot to digest here. But if you were to leave our listeners with three key powerful actions that they can start to take to build quiet confidence, create that bold impact, and collaborate effectively, what would you say are the three core, very quickly, what the three core lessons and actions they could take would be?
So I think firstly, believe in yourself,
Mm,
believe in your worth. Take the time to reflect. I think in these conversations, I've really been sharing a lot about knowing yourself and your abilities. Really,
mm,
that's important. So take the time to reflect on your strengths, your experiences, and the unique value that you bring in
mm,
any aspects of your life, wherever you find yourself in, be it in organizations and communities and society, in sports, wherever where you find yourself. What role, what value do you bring to the
mm,
table? Confidence is really built through acknowledging your own story and really owning that. The second one is taking up space intentionally.
mm,
So there was someone, Miss South Africa and later Miss Universe, who once said, I think it was part of the questions of her winning the pageant. And
mm,
she was asked a question and she said, I think it was a question around youth. What message does she have for youth? And she said something that was profound. It has stayed with me since then. To say young people or people must take up space and cement yourself.
mm,
That has stayed up with me. But how I interpret that myself is that take up space intentionally. And
mm,
once you are there, make sure that your role and your presence is felt.
mm.
Going back, we don't have to be the loudest. Just own up to your strength and
Yeah.
contribute in the way that's authentic to you. So I think absolutely that's the second thing that I would say. The third one is building up a network of support,
Mm,
whether be it finding mentors, finding peers that could challenge you, finding a coach like yourself, a leadership coach,
Thank you.
but just champions of people that would check and challenge you, people that would cheer you on, people that would hold you accountable. But you also don't want people that will always agree with everything you say. So the people must also be able to tell you to say, okay, perhaps what you did, you could have done it in this way. So just to hold you honest, and those are the people that will keep you grounded. So we all need those people in
Yes,
our life,
exactly.
that support structure. But I think really when you combine self-belief, purposeful action, and connection, there's really a lot that one can bring into leading with quiet confidence, which was the core of the
Mhm.
topic today. So those are the three things that I would want to maybe round up with some of the key
Yeah.
parting actions.
And they are fantastic things like self belief, purposeful, intentional action or taking up space, and connections, SPC. So if you want to put an SPC,
Yeah.
SPC is the key to quiet confidence, bold impact. How you can courageously lead, collaborate. It has everything in there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kate, TK. It's been a fantastic time. We could carry on forever, but nobody will listen to it forever because people have this short attention span. But this
Yeah.
is an episode that I would want everybody to take the time, take your pen and paper, really listen and ask yourself, where am I needing to make a change, make a difference? TK, like you said, also is about thinking about yourself in generations. If you feel that you're in the younger generation or you are in the 50s, 40s, we've talked a lot about transitions here. There is so much that can be taken that you can run with. And we've talked about the difficulties on the career journey. However, how you use those difficulties well. So, as we wrap up this powerful conversation, which I know that hopefully you will rewind and watch again, just to say that there is an episode on networking as well, because when he talked about the connections, there's an episode that is dedicated to networking, maybe one or two of the podcast. Feel free to check that out and get some more tips. And I will still do a lot more on networking because even myself, I've been going through training, working with Kit Ferrazzi, who is the writer of the Leading with Authority, on that element of co creation, co elevation, collaboration, because I believe that bringing that to my executive clients will enrich their lives, helping them build the right connections. As we wrap up, I really want to leave you for food for thought from there. Kit Ferrazzi says collaboration is no longer a value to be espoused. It's a necessity for survival. So you might not be someone who needs to speak the loudest or to lead the strongest, like TK says. We just need to be clear about what matters and be courageous enough to collaborate with others. So thank you again, TK, for your time and all that you've shared with us, the great big nuggets today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Patience. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining the conversation. I want you to take the time to make some comments, share what you're learning. Please make sure that you subscribe as well. Your subscription helps us to continue to provide good content, and your comments will do the same. Share it with other people, share it with colleagues, share it with leaders in your organization. And until next time, take care and
God bless.